Hey, deep divers. You ready to get real today? Because today we are going headfirst into this phenomenon. I guess you could call it this book, Girl, Wash Your Face,
Yeah.
by Rachel Hollis. I mean, you guys sent a ton of stuff on this, book reviews, articles, blog posts. Like, clearly people need to talk about this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what's so interesting about this deep dive. It's not just the book itself, right? It's like this whole ripple effect it had. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Right.
Why did this become such a thing?
Yeah, let's do it. So for anyone who hasn't read it yet, can you give us kind of like the quick elevator pitch?
Okay, so Girl, Wash Your Face came out in 2018, and it's written by Rachel Hollis, who actually has a really interesting background herself. She was a blogger who built this whole media company. But anyway, the book itself, it's structured around these lies that Hollis says women tell themselves. And to illustrate these points, she kind of weaves in all these personal anecdotes from her own life.
So it's got that personal touch that a lot of self-help books go for these days?
Right. Totally. It's like she's speaking right to you.
Right.
But that's actually been kind of a point of contention, too, because there's been a lot of buzz about her writing style.
Really?
Yeah, some reviewers loved how, like, relatable and conversational it felt, like Hollis was just chatting with you over coffee, you know? But then other people thought all the, like, casual language and asides were distracting. They wanted something more formal.
It's interesting how polarizing it is. I actually like that about it, though. It makes it different than all those other self-help books that just feel kind of preachy.
Right, I totally get that. It's definitely more approachable in a way.
Exactly. And I bet that's a big part of why so many people connected with it. It feels more like a heart-to-heart with a friend who gets it than like a lecture from some expert.
You're totally right. And speaking of connecting with readers, let's talk about the core messages here. Like, what are the big takeaways Hollis is trying to get across?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so one of the huge themes is this focus on like self-reliance and agency. It's all about recognizing you have the power to choose happiness.
It's that whole you are not a victim, you create your own reality thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's very empowering in a way. But she takes it a step further by really digging into those limiting beliefs that can hold us back. You know, those lies we tell ourselves.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there.
Right. And she spends a good chunk of the book encouraging people to identify those lies and then challenge them, like thinking we're not good enough or smart enough or whatever it is.
Man, those are some deep-seated insecurities for a lot of people.
They really are. And I think that's where Hollis's background as a blogger comes in handy, you know? She's great at taking these complex ideas and making them relatable and easy to understand.
Totally. She breaks it down into bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. And I think that's a huge part of why this book especially resonated with women. It felt authentic and relatable. You know, like she was one of them.
Yeah, you can definitely see that. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses, right? I mean, a book this big is going to have its critics, too.
Oh, for sure. Not everyone loved it. And there are definitely some valid criticisms that came up.
Okay, so let's dive into those a little because I'm actually really curious to hear what rubbed people the wrong way.
So one of the biggest criticisms, and I think this is a valid one, is that the book is kind of oversimplifying some really complex issues.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, just choose happiness. But life is messy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not always that simple.
Exactly. And I think critics are pointing out that while Hollis is super encouraging, she doesn't always acknowledge all these external factors that can make personal growth a lot harder for some people.
Right. Like, telling someone to chase their dreams is great, but what if they're barely making ends meet or dealing with discrimination? There are some hurdles you can't just positive affirmation your way out of.
Totally. And there's this one example that always comes to mind. Hollis talks about starting her business from her kitchen table, which is inspiring and all, but it kind of ignores the reality for a single parent working 2 jobs who can barely afford childcare, let alone time to build a whole brand.
It's that whole bootstrap mentality that can be so frustrating. Because not everyone is starting from the same place.
Exactly. And that ties into the whole debate about privilege that surrounded the book.
Right. Because there were definitely some reviewers who felt like Hollis's own background made her advice feel kind of out of touch.
Absolutely. Her experiences are hers, and they don't reflect everyone's struggles.
Nope. Not even close. And then, of course, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The whole religion aspect.
Yeah, that definitely sparked some debate because while Hollis is open about being Christian, the book's approach to faith is something that some sources called moralistic therapeutic deism.
Okay, now I'm going to need you to break that down for those of us who didn't major in theology.
Sure, basically it's the belief that, like, God exists, God wants us to be happy, but he's not really involved in the day-to-day stuff.
So it's kind of a hands-off approach to faith.
Pretty much. And
Yeah.
that really didn't sit well with some readers, especially those who are looking for something more traditionally Christian.
It's like she tried to walk this line between secular self-help and something more spiritual.
Right, and that's what makes the book so polarizing. It's trying to appeal to a really broad audience, so it ends up not fully satisfying everyone.
Yeah, that's bound to happen when something gets this popular.
Yeah,
Everyone comes in with different expectations and baggage.
for sure. And that's honestly what makes this deep dive so interesting, all these different perspectives.
I agree. So with all that being said, there's no denying this book had a huge impact. It really resonated with a lot of people, especially women.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
yeah, it really is interesting because even with all the criticisms about privilege and, the kind of vague approach to religion, the book still really resonated with people. Why do you think that is?
Right. Like, what was it about Girl, Wash Your Face
Hmm.
that really struck a chord?
Well, I think the timing definitely played a role. Remember, it came out right in the middle of the Me Too movement when all these conversations about women's empowerment were happening.
So it was kind of tapping into something that was already out there.
Exactly. Like, Hollis gave a voice to what a lot of women were already feeling. This need to break free from expectations, to be ambitious, to put themselves first.
And she did it in a way that felt relatable, even if not all the advice was practical for everyone.
Right. And you can't underestimate the power of personal stories. Whether you like her or not, Hollis is really good at being vulnerable, sharing her own struggles. And that makes people feel seen.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
like that we're all in this together feeling that's so important in self-help.
Absolutely. And even if Girl, Wash Your Face didn't have all the answers, it got people thinking and talking about themselves, about society, about their beliefs. That's huge.
It's like it opened the door to self-discovery,
Right.
even without offering any easy solutions.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point, isn't it? Sometimes just starting the conversation is the most important step.
Totally. So for our listener who brought us this book, what's the big takeaway here? What can they learn from all this?
I think the biggest thing is to remember that Girl, Wash Your Face is more than just another self-help book. It's like a cultural time capsule. And it sparked these really important conversations about what it means to be a woman today, about expectations and happiness and all of that.
It's like a reminder that there's no right way to do this whole personal growth thing.
Exactly. What works for one person might not work for another, and that's totally fine.
It's all about finding what works for you and creating your own path.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, if Girl, Wash Your Face helps even a few people do that, then it's done its job, right?
Absolutely. So to our listeners out there, we leave you with this. What did you think of Girl, Wash Your Face? What resonated with you? What didn't? And most importantly, what will you take away from it for your own life?
Keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.